Hello everybody, we're back again. Me and my lovely wife, she's filming. And what I want to do now is to show you some other things God has shown me, how good He is. And He exactly knows what we're going through right now in the moment. And He showed me this as I was thinking a little while back about some things about the church, catching away and different things, and He showed me so much over the years. It's just amazing. And He started with appointed times and went through the Hebrew alphabet and all that, and just showed me so much. It's just amazing. But with that, He's even brought me clarity, and I think He's showing more and more people more stuff because we're getting closer to the time. And like in Daniel, it says as he gets closer to the end of times, that knowledge will increase. And we've seen it explode in the world of science, technology, and everything else. But there is always a physical example of a spiritual that He's showing us more and more and more concerning His Word and revolving around His Word, revealing more and more to us that we've never seen before. He's just continually teaching His people. And that's one thing I want us to understand too, that with me, I want y'all to realize that, I may make mistakes and some things I might not see clearly, but as we pray, that God brings us clarity. And I really would desire for all of y'all, as you're seeking God, to just take God's word and just ask God. It's something I did years ago that I said, Lord, please show me the truth. Lord, help me understand your word better, to know you better, understand you better. And His word's so true that if you really are seeking the truth and really are looking, God will show you that. And He said, those who knock, the door shall be opened. Those who seek, they shall find. And He's also told us that those who have some understanding, He will even give more understanding. And He's just so faithful in that. But He's shown me some things here lately that just brought us more clarity, and I want to share that with you. Now, what I'm about to share with you, I don't know if anybody else, He showed us anybody else before. I don't know if there is. I'm not heard of it. But as I'm thinking about that, listen, if you are learning from what God is showing you through this, please hit subscribe and what's the other, what is it?
Sign up for notifications.
Yeah, sign up for notifications, because listen, I'm going to send this out to a few other people, but I'm now to the point where the time is short and it takes a lot of time to send this out to everybody. So now I'm at the point, if you want to hear more, just hit subscribe and notice application. What do you say?
Like and notifications.
And notifications. And if you don't, if you want to see more, do that, because I'm sort of to the place I'm going to sort of quit sending them, because I don't want to bug people who don't want to see them. I don't want to harass nobody, and I don't want to feel like I'm trying to push this on anyone. I'm just wanting people to know how good my God is, and share with others what He's shown me. So from at this point forward, if you want more, just hit the subscribe and share it with others if you like what you're hearing. And so that will give us all an opportunity to witness more about Him. So what He's shown me is something that's just astounding, and I guess it's because we tend to put God in a box, and we tend to view ourselves on a lesser level than how God views us. So I want to show you something. Before I do this, I want to sort of set a groundwork here. If you go back to Jacob, and it's just a beautiful picture how he worked in all their lives, but He's also using them as a theatrical play through time to show us His plan through His people. So Jacob's leaving the promised land after he had his spat with Esau, and well, really more than a spat, but so he's out and he's leaving, and then he has a dream right at a certain place, and he takes a rock and put it under his head, and he goes to sleep, and he has a dream, of this ladder that's from the ground and reaching up to heaven, and there's angels ascending and descending on the ladder. And so he wakes up, and then he says, man, this is an awesome place. And if you're looking at it, it actually says he come to a certain place. But we'll maybe talk more about that later. But to understand, Jacob's name means different things. One, it comes from the word heel catcher because he's catching Esau's heel as he's coming out of the womb. But it also means to replace, supplant. It also means deceive, to deceive. So the Lord gives us more clarity later when he comes on the scene, right? He shows up, and John is told him, behold the Lamb who takes away the sins of the world, and then some disciples follow him, and I believe one of them was Philip, but they go and they find Nathaniel, Nathaniel. And so they bring in Nathaniel to him, and they said, we found the Messiah. He's coming out of Nazarene, and he said, he's from Nazareth, and he said, can anything good come out of Nazareth? So as he's walking up to Jesus, Jesus sees him and says, oh, an Israelite in whom there is no deceit. So the Lord is sort of showing us something. He's making a connection. Jacob's name means deceiver. Here's an individual who's coming with no deceit, and actually no guile. And then he said, Nathaniel said, Lord, how do you know me? And he said, well, whenever you was under the fig tree, I saw you. And that means a lot in itself. But he said, oh, you surely are the Son of God. And he said, just because I seen you on the fig tree, you believe? He said, you shall see the angels ascending and descending on the Son of Man. So he's showing us something, that Jesus is the ladder, and there's angels ascending and descending. And now God has shown us even more. Jesus has told us in one place that we will be like the angels. Paul says, you shall be judging angels. So the Lord is showing us something. Jacob is a picture of his people, that his name means to replace. So he's showing us something, that Satan come to deceive, to kill, steal, and destroy. And he's the lion who's trying to devour God's people. And so he's showing us that the people who believe in Jesus Christ and have overcame, and we'll talk more about that later, that they will be seated with him. And what he's showing is that they are like the angels, and he's showing that Jacob is going to replace them angels in heaven and reign with the Lord, and they will ascend and descend on the Son of Man, who is that ladder. He is the bridge. He's everything, okay? So we'll find out later, and we've already found out he is the arrow. He's the tent peg. He's the sword, the sword of the Spirit. He is all these things, and God, he is his instrument. Not just an instrument, he is Son of God, and using him to save the world through grace in him and what he's done and through him. And he's revealing to the world how good God is. But with that, he's showing us some things here. So as I got to thinking about it, the Lord, one night as I was going to bed, and I was thinking about all these things, all of a sudden popped in my mind, out of the blue, Hezekiah and the stairway. And I ain't thought about Hezekiah in a long time. And through that, the day leading up to that, and a few days before, the Lord knew that I've been meditating a lot about it, and sort of had got a little discouraged. But in all of that, he's showing us that he knows everything that's going on, and he's just there ready. So as I was laying down, I wrote that down on something. And then so I remember the next morning when I got up, I looked it up, and he revealed some things to me. In that, Hezekiah is a picture of God's people, and it is a picture of his people who will rise early, okay? And I may share this in more detail later, but as you go and read that, the stairway of Ahaz is showing a picture to us through his people. Hezekiah was about to die, and he's mortally wounded to death. And so Isaiah come to him and said, you're about to die, and set your house in order. So he was sorrowful over it, and he turned his face to the wall and started praying. Now let me ask you, who are now looking at the wall praying? It's his people. They are facing the Wailing Wall, and they're praying to the Wailing Wall. And God is going to through what he's going to
Towards
do.
the Wailing Wall.
Yeah, towards the Wailing Wall. And so, but he's showing you a picture that he already knew all this is going to take place. But God is also showing you how good and gracious he is. So the God granted him his request to live. And Isaiah, when he was in the middle court, okay, that's important because God is showing us that Hezekiah will rise early in the middle of something, okay? So anyway, so he said, you shall live and I will give you 15 more years, and 15 means the rest. So he said, well, what will be the sign? He said, well, shall the shadow go forward on the stairway of Ahaz, or should it go backwards? And he said, well, it's easier for it to go forward. Let it go backwards. So he's showing us something. The stairway of Ahaz, that name literally means seize, seizure, to grab. So he's showing you, here's a picture of the rapture to be seized out. That he's going to move it back 10 steps, okay? And really he's showing you that he's going to start it really back almost from the beginning and save his people. And Hezekiah will be one of the first who are called up to be with God, and he's using it to save them, but also to save others. So what I want to show you is what is God doing. So you remember the menorah, right? It is the candlestick, which we see in Revelation. It says is the church. And I've shared with you, it's so wonderful that there's 7 lights, and Aaron would arrange the lights in order, okay? And what he'd do, he would trim them to the inside, or all them lights are looking to the middle light. And guess what? The middle light is Christ. So the church, or his assembly, or how you want to put it, is really those who are looking at Jesus. But he's showing us even more than that. It's a myriad. So what I got here is a crude drawing, and it's showing you something. Here is a crude drawing of a menorah, and there's 7 lights, but he's showing you something. A menorah actually means yoked together. And I hope to show you something else later in another video, how God, when he was feeding his people in the wilderness with the 5 loaves, that he's showing you that he's using a certain provision to feed another group, okay? And I'll get more in detail about that later, but he's showing us something. He said, we are the light of the world set up on a hill, right? And we should be shining. And we know that Jesus is the light. He is the one really that's in the middle, walking in the middle of the candlestick, but he's showing us something even more than that. That as he is in the middle, walking in the middle of the candlestick, he's showing us something even more. He is the candlestick, and it's solid gold. And it's showing you that he is, that's also like it's hammered out in the picture of an almond tree, as his, limbs sticking up. But the fruit is showing you is light. It's shaped like an almond. And if you hold up an almond, it looks like a flame. So he's showing you that Jesus he's by his righteousness, he's holding us up, and he's letting us shine to the world, but he's even showing us even more. It's so awesome. He's showing us this, that as there's 7 lights, he's literally showing us that there is going to be 7 catching aways, and some of them has already taken place, and he's showing us this. The first one here is Enoch, okay? And we know Enoch, walked with God, and Enoch was not, because God took him, right? And if I remember correctly, I think, how old was he? 300 years old when he started walking with God. There's the 300. And then you got the second one was Elijah. He went up in the whirlwind, right? So this right here will also show us that I believe, my understanding, that the 2 witnesses that will come back will be Enoch and Elijah for a couple of reasons. Some think it's Moses because of the miracles, but God's word tells us that it's appointed once a man to die and then the judgment, okay? So Moses has already died, so that means if he comes back, he's going to die twice. But by Enoch being called out, not never dying, and Elijah, that they will come back as the 2 witnesses, and they will witness for God for 3.5 years, and it says the beast will overcome them, and they will be slain. They will lay in the streets for their bodies for 3.5 days, and then they will hear a voice that says, come up here. They will rise to their feet, and they shall be caught up as their enemies watching you. So watching them. So he's showing you this. The first one was Enoch, the second one Elijah, and the third one was what? Jesus, the third on the third day. That when he ascended on high, right? He come before the Father, presented himself as first fruits from the dead, right? And then he led a host of captives free, and we'll talk more about that later. So there's the third one. But he's showing us something more. Now listen, Jesus is the light, but he's showing us that he is the one in the middle, but he is literally, when he says I'm walking in the midst of the candlestick, guess what? That's the church. We're the one in the middle of all this, and he's walking with us, inside us by the Spirit. But he is the light, and he's the one that's causing us to shine to the world. Why? Because he's holding us up. And he's showing you that we're in the middle of all this. Why? Well, as he is, so are we in the world. Just like Jesus came in the middle and split the timeline from AD and BC, and that's another reason why at the Feast of Booths, when they said, go on up to the Feast of Booths, he said, no, I'm not going up yet. My time has not yet come. And then he went up in the middle of the feast. He's showing them through this appointed time that his times come in the middle of the timeline. So as he is, so are we. So if you remember Daniel in the 69th week, he put the Jewish people sort of on pause. And some people don't believe in the gap theory, but I believe in that he puts them on pause. And he's with the Gentiles for 2,000 years, which is 2 days. All right? But now he's getting close to the end. And when we're caught up, he's turning his attention all back to them. But guess what? He is using us and will use us as we're caught away, that his people, the first fruits of his people, will realize that them Gentiles, he called up, and there's going to be a mixed multitude, but I'm showing you overall that in the church, mainly Gentiles, that he saved them not according to the law. He saved them obviously by grace, because none of us are perfect. And here's another picture of the good for nothings. What? We got to realize there's nothing good in us, and that we come around Jesus and we're assembled to him because he's so good, not because we are, and he gives us everything we need. Right? So he's showing you. So what will happen is, when we're caught up in the middle, that will mark the first group of his people that will realize, hey, we missed it. And sometime after, I don't know if it's going to be a year later, I don't know exact time after, but the first group will be called up, which will mark the first 144,000 that are sealed, right? And then they will be then called up at the mid-trib, okay?
Different group.
A different group, right? The different group that's sealed. Why? By the first group that went up. And then whenever that group, second group, goes up at the mid, it will then mark the next 144,000, who will be another first fruit when he returns. And I can show you all that through Revelation. So what I want to sort of show you here, if I can, and y'all bear with me, because there's a lot in this. And before I go into that, God, he's so awesome. And he uses, man, only God can do this, is how good he is. We have Peter, right? Peter is saved, and I believe will be one of the elders on the throne. We don't know who's going to be at the left or right. We know Jesus at the right hand of the Father. But Peter is saved, but he's still using Peter as an example of his people. Because Peter's name means, he named him Peter and said, you shall be Peter, which means like a little stone or a little rock. And it's showing you a couple things there. When Jesus, went in to, I think, raise Tabitha, he took Peter, James, and John. So James is the I think, I don't know if you call it Greek name, but the modern name for Jacob, okay? And John,
it's an alternative name for Jacob.
Yeah, for Jacob. And John is the male of the feminine Johanna, which means grace. So we showed you Peter, James, and John. In order to raise Tabitha, he's showing you that the law, what you mean the stone, the law was written on stone, meaning the law is replaced by grace. And that's what brings us back to life, because Jesus fulfilled the law. So what he's done is he's showing us that in the last 7 years, the 70th week, which is called Jacob's trouble, and that's why he said, I will make a short work. He's going to do in 7 years basically what he's done since Adam and Eve in this short time. So he's showing us something, that there will be a first group that will be caught up. Why? Because they seen us. And before I go there, I got to share, I'm getting ahead of myself. I want to share some other verses with you. I'm not going to go to them, but I'm going to tell you about them. This is why Jesus says with Peter, he's using him as an example. He says, Peter, you shall deny me 3 times before the cock crows, okay? So what does the rooster crows at the beginning, at dawn, right? Now we know some of them crow all during the night, but you will hear them crowing at dawn. It's like an alarm clock, right? And so he's showing you. He's using Peter as a theatrical play through time. Peter, Petra, those who are hard-hearted and still looking at the law, said, you will deny me 3 times. So that's the first, second, and the third catching away, all right? And those who deny Jesus, guess what? They will be the ones weeping when he returns. Because Peter went out weeping, right? Remember that morning? And he also told Peter, he said, Satan has asked to sift you like wheat, but I have prayed for your faith. And when you turn again, strengthen the brethren. So here you have the wheat harvest. And Satan is asked to sift many of us like wheat, but Jesus has prayed for us. He prayed for us before he went to the cross. And in that, he actually uses that. Once again, he uses Satan as a tool to bring about something, a purpose, to bring about something better. And this is really what the 7-year tribulation is about. It's called the hour of testing that will become upon man. And so if you look, as Jesus is going to pray in the garden, this is another reason why he says that, can you not pray for at least 1 hour, right? And he come back and they're asleep. He said, you cannot pray. He said, the flesh is willing, but the spirit is weak. And if you look, he came to them 3 times and went away 3 times. It's a picture that the first time they're caught up, those who were caught up were what? Praying and watching, right? Those who went missed it. There will be the mid-trib when they're caught up, right? Those who are then realized and awakened by the previous catching away that, hey, we got to watch and pray. Those, they're caught up. Those who aren't watching and praying are left behind. And then finally, the third time when he comes, them will be the 300. Them will be the ones it's talking about with Gideon, okay? And to show y'all something, once again, this is why in Revelation there's a couple things happen. Well, more than one thing, but before the church is called up, there's the 7 letters, and this is why in many of the letters he's giving us clues. There's one, he says that basically, if you overcome, I will give you the hidden manna. So he's showing you something, that the rapture is like hidden manna. Why? The rapture is hidden from many, and there's many people who are saved, and I believe if you're looking at Jesus and you're communicating to him, talking in a relationship because of what he's done, look, you're going to be caught up. It doesn't matter if if we're going to have one or not. You're going to be caught up. But God is getting his children ready so that the most that possibly can be will be watching, praying, and looking. Because he says, watch and pray that you do not enter into temptation. And so what he's saying there is, 1, watch. There's a 300 with Gideon who were watching. They didn't, they didn't have their heads down drinking the water. They brought it up because they're alert. They're watching and they're looking for Jesus. And so there's a picture. Now, praying is the communication, and Jesus says, pray and watch that you may escape all these things that are about to take place on the earth. So pray and watch that you don't enter the temptation. And what is the temptation? Listen, contrary to what a lot of people think, it's not about your sin. It's about the sin, but don't want to get off in the weeds here, but temptation means is the fear and anxiety that comes from the scarcity of something. So there's a lot of people who, when you're not looking at Jesus and you're not communicating with him, the evil one's going to come in and is going to try to steal things from you. But when you're looking at Jesus and know what he's done and you're abiding in his light, then you shine. This is why he's saying, look, let your light shine before men. And upon the trumpet sounding or his return, if your light's not shining to the world, what? The fruit of praise and thanksgiving going up to the Father, if your light's out, you'll be left behind because he's choosing the elect, okay? Now, so pray and watch. The temptation is to be fearful that you're lacking something. But here's the thing, in Christ, he's given us everything we need. Everything, so all our faith is in him. So he's showing us some things. So those who overcome will partake of the hidden manna. Also it says, if you overcome, I will give you the morning star. So what does the morning star do? It's something that rises first. You see that? Rises first. So he's showing you the church. Right? This is a letter to the church. Another one says, if you overcome, I will keep you from the hour of testing. What? That hour of testing that's about to come up on the world. Why? Because they don't believe how good God is. They don't believe that he's going to save them, not because they're righteous, but because he's righteous. So those who are looking at Jesus, communicating, talking to him, that, look, he saved us by his grace, and our light's shining because of him. And then it says in another place, if you don't overcome, or if you quit looking at me, we may go back and look at more of them individual, but he says, I will remove the lampstand, or the lamp, the candlestick actually, I will remove the candlestick from its place. So here's the thing, he's showing you, but here's the great thing, that in this, he's even showing you his grace. I do believe and that there are many people God is saving and is going to save, but when the church is caught up, there will be many that will be left behind. Why? Because they're still looking at the wrong thing. They're still looking at themselves and their sin, and they're not looking at Jesus. And they're trying to quit sin, and they're trying to live this life, this Christian life, quote unquote, that God has not told us to do. And people say, what do you mean? Look, God has did this. What he's told us, Jesus, it says, look, abide in me, abide in my word, and abide in my love. And out of that is the fruit produced. And it's back to the tree. He said, you first must make the tree good. He's made us good by what Jesus Christ has done on Calvary. He's given me his righteousness. So here's the thing, what he's showing you. If you miss it, here's the grace. Look, start looking to him. Looking to him, because your candlestick might get moved from its place and it may be in this place. You understand? That he's showing us something. If you're not overcome, what do you mean overcome? Overcame what? Well, really what he's talking about there is overcoming the world. Well, he's done said he's overcome the world, right? So what he's showing us here is those who overcome the judgment. What do you mean? The judgment that Satan is trying to put on us. The judgment of the world, because here's back in this. Here's the thing. Once again, if you're judging others for what they're doing or not doing, you're still under judgment, okay? And your light's not shining to the world of grace and gratitude. Once again, Satan has a 3G network, guilt, which leads to gainsaying. Let me give you an example of that. If I'm saying, well, at least you don't ask for money like that other preacher does, believe it or not, that's still a form of gainsaying. Why? Because in it, you're actually gaining some type of approval that I recognize that, and I wouldn't be part of that, and I would never do that. But at the same time, you're down in others. Look, Jesus doesn't judge others, especially within a crowd. Even with John, when he came doubting, he told the disciples in a loving way, go tell John this. But then what did he do? He built John up and he edified John. See, Jesus, and in and by through Jesus, we do nothing to tear another down. Everything, that's why it's the word of exhortation, is that we to build each other up, to encourage one another, and to tell them how valuable they are to God, and to encourage them into looking at Christ, not to tear one another down. If we're tearing down, we're not building up, helping. Well, like God don't need our help, but we need to be helping others to look at the Lord and encouraging them. So, but let me see if I can show this in another way. So we see here, he's showing us something. So what he's doing is, in that last 7 weeks, he's making a short work. And so the first group, and I'm just showing you, the 30 men, remember there's 30, right? 30. And there's another way to look at this too. 30 pieces of silver. Jesus was betrayed for what? For 30 pieces of silver. And in the Old Testament it says, oh, what a marvelous cost. And it's being sarcastic, but he's showing us something else. To God, it was a marvelous cost because we're the 30, okay? He died for the 30 pieces of silver. He done it for us. Jesus gave his life because the joy set before him, he endured the cross. So we realize we're no good, but God has saved us and he's made us righteous. So the first group is sort of the 30, and they sealed.
And that 30 is not literal. That's a figurative 30.
Yeah,
it just demonstrates something.
Yes, so it demonstrates something. Because if you take I'll give you an example of that. Right now they did a poll. How many minutes I've been on that now?
32.
All right. I'm going to have to finish more of this later. But they did a poll in America. It said, if in an election for the president, if you cheated and it meant your candidate would win, would you cheat? And I think it was something like 78, 75% thereof, 70%, something like that, said, yes, I would. Okay? And then only, it's either 20 or 30% said I would not. So God is showing you something. There is an amount in the world, and he's showing you there's a smaller amount that is his people that will try to do the right thing regardless. Because here's the thing. No matter who wins the next presidency, listen, it would be good if a conservative, and I ain't making this political one, but they're not our salvation. The president is not going to save America. Jesus is. So we should not defile our conscience or do anything contrary to outside of God's will to make something happen, okay? But I'm just showing you that there was 30% or 25 they're at that would not. There is the smaller group. So the first 30 is going to seal the first 144. Now, 144,000. And I'm going to go to this real quick. I won't plan on doing this.
Is that 144,000 symbolic, or is that literal?
I believe it's symbolic. It could be literal. I don't know. Only somebody else may know the answer to that. I really don't know. I'm thinking it's symbolic, but he's going to use them as witnesses too. And whenever that first group when the trials start is caught up, it will spark a revival. If you look in chapter 7 of Revelation, it says this. Chapter 7, verse 2. And I saw another angel. Every word in God's word is there for a reason. I saw another angel ascending from the rising of the sun, having the seal of the living God, and he cried out with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it is granted to harm the earth and the sea, saying, do not harm the earth or the sea or the trees until we have sealed the bondservants of our God on their foreheads. So he's showing us something here. In our catching away, which is a reward for us, but in our reward, he's using it to feed others. Okay? And that's what God is showing us when he fed the 5,000 with the 5 loaves, and that's another discussion for later. So if you look, he said, I saw another angel ascending. So it's indicating that really there was a previous one. The previous one was the church. And when those see the church is taken, that will seal the first fruits in the tribulation. And when they're taken up, it says, do not harm the trees, the earth, and all that. It's a picture. Trees represents righteousness, the leaves on it. God is going to end up allowing things to take place, and there will be things going on the earth, the physical, but that's happening, but he's using that for a deeper purpose in that he's trying to strip everybody of their own righteousness so they'll start looking at the righteousness of God. Because a lot of people think they are, but they're looking at the wrong thing. And whenever trials and tribulations come on us, that's the trying of us to show us and to reveal in us what's really there. And in the trial and tribulation, if cursings and all that comes out, it's showing you, or should show you, that you need to look more at Christ. Now, the good thing is God is gracious. And I fail many trials, but his grace is new and fresh every moment in Christ. Every time there's a new beginning. So we learn from that, and we learn to look at the Lord. So he's using these all this time to bring his people to a place. So through there he's showing you that angel ascended, sealed the 144,000, and that's why later it says there was silence in heaven for half an hour. There's half of the hour of testing for the next group who's going to come up, who marks that. What? The one who's received the mark. Because at this time, the Antichrist will rise up, and he will cause those to receive a mark. He has no new material. Why? Because God, by what he's done with the 144,000 sealed, they're sealed by the Spirit. At that point, the Spirit is gone altogether in his people, and that's when the Antichrist can fully rise up. And then the next group is marked, what? In their forehead of the mark by the Father. That, hey,
not the Antichrist.
Not the Antichrist, the mark. So think of this too, that Satan is 666, man in spirit, man in body, man in soul. His people, the first fruits, are 777.
His meaning God's people.
Yeah, God's people. And with that, he's showing you this also. W. Sheen. And we'll talk more about this later.
We call it W, but it's a character that is pronounced Sheen in the Hebrew.
And I already got it there. It's numerical value. But it's the 21st letter. All right? Sheen, and that actually is the 21st character in the alphabet, and he's showing you something. It actually means the name of God. It also means a crushing, all right? But so he's showing you that during this time, God is allowing things to come on to crush the people, to bring them to the end of their self, to strip them of their righteousness. So the first group that comes up, right, is 100, which seals the middle one is 100, which then seals the next group, or marks the next group, that will be the first fruits right before his return. There you have the 300, okay?
These are all symbolic 100.
Yeah, symbolic numbers. Because 100 means the children of God. So he's showing you. And so, any way you look at this, now you also can look at this another way. Verse 7, complete, 7 complete, 7 complete. There's the 3 sevens. There's your 21st letter. You see, he's showing us to us in many ways. And another way you can show it, if you take your calculator, what you need, baby. All right. If you take a calculator and just do this, take a calculator and add up. You know, probably don't even need it. Add up 144. Okay. Let's just do 1,000, and then go 144,000. Well, I messed up. Clear. 144. Let's just make it simple. 144. You can add the zeros later. Plus 144 plus 144. All right. Plus 30. What you got? 318. What do you mean? That's crazy. Well, he's showing us something. If you go all the way back to the law first mentioned, God is showing us something. That when Abraham went to get Lot, to free Lot from the kings that had taken him, he took 318 bondservants. He's showing you. Lot represents his people who are saved, God's people who are saved but are still in the world and part of the harlot. And he's going to use, just like with Gideon, the 300, that whenever they see that caught up, it's going to be wonderful for them, but it'll be an alarm to others. And just like the 318, God is going to use us. Now, he is using us to make the Jewish people jealous and won't know about Christ, but he's going to use us even mightier when we were not even doing anything. This is why it says in one place that like 25, you shall enter the service of the tent of meetings at 25, back in Numbers, but you shall serve in the obligation to your brothers. What? Meaning it's going to help them keep watch. So with the first 100, it's going to help this other group to watch, to look at Jesus. And that group comes up, is going to help the next group to watch, to look at Jesus. So he's using all of them to save the picture of Lot, who is those who are know God, but are still either part of the harlot, have the wrong image of God. And whenever he sees grace upon grace upon grace, then they will start looking at their God, their King, and their Savior, and knowing he is a gracious God. How long has it been gone?
41 minutes and 52
Oh,
seconds.
it's way longer than I wanted. I'm fixing to close. Remember, Samson in a riddle. Out of the eater came something sweet. Out of the strong came something to eat. In 3 days, they did not know the riddle. But on the 4th day, they figured the riddle out. Those who figured it out on the 4th day got a change of clothes. 30. There's your first fruits going up to the Father. I love you. I will see y'all later. Hope to talk to you again. Hope this is helping y'all. Y'all let me know. Bye.